Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Staff Spotlight video series. Today, we'll be interviewing Mr. Zia Haq, who is currently the Department of Energy lead for the Defense Production Act Biofuels initiative. He also manages the analysis and sustainability activities of the Bioenergy Technologies Office. Mr. Haq will be interviewed by Ms. Kristen Johnson, an Analysis and Sustainability Technology Manager with the office. Here, she helps coordinate strategic analysis of advanced biofuels technologies and the office's efforts to understand and promote the environmental benefits of bioenergy while reducing potential negative impacts.
So what is your role in the Bioenergy Technologies Office?
I cover three main areas. The first one is analysis, strategic analysis and sustainability. And of course, this is a very important area for biomass. If we want to grow substantial quantities of biomass and utilize it in our nation's infrastructure, we need to be aware and sensitive to the sustainability issues. And we need to know what they cost and what the implications are for their use. So that's one of my main areas that I work on. I also work on a joint initiative that we recently implemented with the Defense Department for enabling the use of biofuels in ships and aircraft in the Navy's operations around the world. So that's a very exciting and new initiative that we're involved in, and I'm leading that effort. I'm also working with the civil aviation sector, looking at the potential for the use of biofuels for aircraft operations around the world. So those are my three main roles within the program.
So what do you like best about your job and why?
That's a very good question. I think the most important aspect of our job, of everybody's job really in the Department of Energy, is public service. So we are doing something that is good for the nation and for the world. And I think that's very important. We're not advancing a particular product or the profit line of a company, but we are looking at the public's benefit from using biofuels. So that's a very important aspect that I like about my job. I think the second point is that we're dealing with some very important and critical issues that are facing the world. Energy security, jobs, climate issues, and we in the Department of Energy, as well as in the federal government, and many agencies of the federal government, are at the forefront of trying to deal with those issues. So that's very exciting. I think that really gives us a sense of accomplishment and being able to say that we've tried to do something about these very difficult issues. The third part are the people. I think that everybody who works, certainly in our program and in many parts of DOE, have a commitment to working on these issues and trying to do something for the public good, and they're committed to their jobs, and they have enthusiasm, and they bring that energy to the job, and so I really benefit from that.
Great. So what is your vision for the Bioenergy Technologies Office as a whole?
So I think that we probably need to focus on three areas, and we have been focusing on these, and I'll just expand a little bit more on what we've done. The primary one is technology, introducing new technologies into the marketplace. What is the innovation that needs to happen that will make biomass cheaper and more sustainable and more easily usable to various sectors of the economy. And I think bringing those technologies from the bench scale to the lab, to the pilot scale and beyond, that's kind of probably a very important role for the biomass program that we have been doing for a long time. I think the second part is providing a voice to the biomass industry, so that our concerns, so that the biomass industry's concerns are heard in the discussions that are going on around the policy issues and the debates that are going on in this town. So I think that that's a very critical element that we've also been involved in, but and that's a very good part of our program. And the third thing generally is leadership, what I call leadership, which is being able to look at areas where we need to provide some assistance to bring the technologies to the forefront, and being able to say that while these technologies may be expensive today, we need to do the work to make them commercial tomorrow. So providing that kind of thought leadership and technology leadership, I think is very critical, and we have been doing that for a number of years, and I think we need to continue to do that in the coming years as well, very strongly.
How would you define renewable energy and its importance to the United States?
I think renewable energy technologies and energy efficiency technologies are extremely important to the United States. They're essential for climate, to mitigate climate change issues, and they're essential for energy security issues. Really the key definition of renewable energy, I think, has to be that it has to be sustainable over the long term, meaning that as we grow, as the world's population grows and the world's demand for transportation services and energy services grows, we don't rely on a source of energy that is going to run out 40 or 50 years from now, but that is going to be sustainable over the long term for generations to come. So I think that that's kind of the definition, and I think that really there's no way that in the coming world where we have increasing pressures on climate and we have increasing demands for food and feed and fuel, that we can do without a growing role for renewable energy. So I think it's absolutely essential, and I think it has been growing substantially over quite a few years, and I think that it'll continue to grow for the foreseeable future. So.
Great. What would you say is the office's greatest accomplishment to date?
Right. I think probably the single biggest accomplishment. There are many accomplishments. I think we tend to have small accomplishments almost on a daily basis. Everybody contributes in this office, but from my perspective, one of the major accomplishments over the last few years has been the enzyme cost reduction work that has been done through our national labs and our industrial partners, jointly with our industrial partners. Cellulase enzymes 10, 20 years ago were extremely expensive, and today, thanks to the efforts at NREL, PNL, and our other labs, those costs have come down dramatically over the last 10 years, and we highlight that in our discussions when we go out and talk to people. But I think it is probably less recognized than it should be. So I think that that's key. I think our second area where we've been where we've accomplished a lot has been our integrated biorefineries. We have about 25 of them across the country in various stages of construction and operation, and these will provide the platforms to prove out these technologies at substantial scale. So I think that the program's involvement in these integrated biorefineries is critical, and I'm really glad that we have had the foresight to be able to do these projects. The third area that really we should be proud of is our national labs. I think our national labs are the nation's crown jewels in terms of the research and development that goes on in this country on renewable energy technologies. They're recognized all over the world. People come from around the world and talk to me about our national labs and the work that they're doing. So I think that that's something that we should be very proud of, and they have done some very exciting work over the last few years to advance the field of biofuels.
Great. So what got you interested in the biomass field?
Well, several things. First of all, my father was in the agriculture ministry in Bangladesh. So we grew up our whole life discussing agriculture around the dinner table. And it was a very fascinating introduction into the world of crops and cultivation and so forth. And although I never really wanted to be a farmer, I thought that working in biomass would be able to keep that interest in agriculture in me. So that was probably the first thing. The second thing was that I've always been interested in aviation from my childhood as a hobby. And so, when this opportunity came along for introduction of biofuels into the aviation sector, that was a really good match for what I wanted to do. And third, of course, is international. I'm from Bangladesh, and so one of my key interests has been the role of biofuels and renewable technologies in general internationally in countries around the world. And I've seen firsthand in Bangladesh, certainly, and in many parts of Southeast Asia, the role that renewable energy has played, solar, wind, as well as biomass-based technologies in improving people's lives. So I think that that's a really critical area for renewable energy technologies to play, not only in terms of climate mitigation, but also providing energy services to populations that are not served by the traditional sources of energy. So those were kind of the main things that got me interested in biofuels and involved in this area for many, many years.
So what advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in the biomass field?
Right. So I would suggest that I would strongly encourage them. I think it's a very interesting field. In terms of jobs and career opportunities, I would suggest that they should look at a wide variety of opportunities, not just at the federal government or at any government agency, but also in industry and at the national labs or in academia, for example. Because there are many different kinds of areas where people can make a contribution. If you're interested in policy and congressional types of issues, then government is a good source. If you want to work in industry where you want to invent products and bring products into the market, then that's a really good area. If you want to work at sort of technical issues at the national labs, then that's certainly an area where people find a lot of satisfaction, and they spend their entire careers working in those fields and make substantial contributions. Have a very broad perspective on where you want to work, and try to match your strengths and interests to the type of work that is done at these organizations. I think that's very critical. I think the second point that I would make is that you have to be patient. That things, especially if you're working in the government, it takes a long time to get things done. Everything has to be done through consensus and through sort of a peer review process. So it does take time to get things done. If you're thinking of coming into the government and changing things overnight, then that's going to be difficult. So you have to be patient. But at the end of the day, that really pays off because you have the opportunity to influence a lot of things that you may not have if you work in the private sector, for example. So I think that patience is very, very useful. And finally, you should work in an area where you have real sustained interest. Because if you don't, and you spend 8 hours a day working on something that you're not interested in, you'll very quickly run out of steam or become frustrated and so forth. So it should be something where you have a lot of interest, where you can get into the details and do a good job. And often you may not get credit for what you do, and that happens all the time, and that's fine. I don't think that people should worry about that. I think that everybody should give credit where it's due, even if it's not you that may have done the work, but if other people have done the work, then you should give them credit for what they've done. And credit and recognition will come eventually to you as well. It may not be obvious right away how things are playing out, but eventually you will get credited for the type of work that you do. So I think that those are things that people can certainly look at, and this is a really exciting field. It's very complicated. There are many, many nuances to this field. There are no clear winners or losers. You have to really understand and get into the technical details of these issues to be able to recognize all the nuances associated with them. And I think if you do that, people will appreciate you for your understanding and reward you as you move forward. So.
Absolutely.